I've entitled this one Effortless Grace for very good reason, because the realization of the self is ultimately effortless. Even before actually the idea of effort, before any ideas, before any concepts. And the reason for that we've touched upon in many other streams, but it bears a lot of repetition, is that actually in truth, we're already this self, this infinite silence. And because it's infinite, we can't not be it. And there can be nothing outside of the infinite. So there is nowhere to go, and nowhere you have to go, and nowhere to get to. And that's because it's already here. And so, as Eckhart Tolle, I understand, once put it, you get there by realizing you are already there. And that's a major reason why it's called realization. And the self, as we've talked about in one of the previous streams, I can't remember which number it was now, this self is non-personal, and it's awareness, just awareness, absolute awareness. And that's what you are, and that's the power that drives the universe. Often referred to as no thing or nothing. And the thing about nothing or no thing is that it has, unlike things, it has no boundaries, no limits. It is beyond space, beyond time, indeed before all of those ideas, and even before being. So one of the most peculiar things from the perspective of mind, which has been so conditioned to associating with, identifying with ego mind, is that actually it takes no effort to be the self, and also takes no time. And this mind cannot comprehend. This mind cannot comprehend, because it is used to, from A to B, we go this path and take these steps. And yet I'm saying to you, actually, it's effortless. And not only is it effortless, it's also accurate to say there is no path, because one is already here, or there, wherever that is, which is now here. Yet in the human domain we experience, linear time. And so it would appear from the human perspective to require effort to get there. And yet I'm saying in the title of the stream, no effort required. And indeed, in efforting towards it, you actually push it away from you. There's nowhere for you to go, and there's nothing you can do about it. Just say that again. There's nowhere for you to go, and there's nothing you can do about it, because you are already this, and always have been, and always will be this. And as it flowers or is realized, the other peculiar facet of that is it won't be because of anything that you've done. Which sounds really weird, I know, but that is ultimately the case. Because if there's one of the common things that people report as it flowers is it is seen, oh my gosh, I already was this, I knew this, but this I is the non-personal I, and it's also the most real thing, so we say, or no thing, more accurately, that they've ever experienced. The reality of it is realized as that which you already are. And so it's effortless. And you remember on the last stream, for those of you who've had a chance to listen to it or were on there live, I talked about the sliver of ice, the ice cube in the water. And the ice cube was synonymous with ego and identification and form. And it was surrounded by this, to it, ocean of water. And effortlessly, just by being present in the water, the ice dissolves. And it becomes, or realizes, actually, it's water. The ice realizes it's water. With no effort. So it is with self-realization. You realize that you are the awareness, the field, the infinite field of self-aware energy. No effort required. And yet you also remember, I spoke about that, when one identifies with ego mind, believes in the thought stream and believes in belief, so to speak, then it's like putting the ice cube back in the freezer and it gets bigger and appears more solid. But as that belief is dissolved with the power of awareness, then the dissolution eventually becomes complete. And it's this effortlessness, this dissolution, in what I refer to, one of the messages that came from the silence for me to articulate this to you was the rarefied atmosphere of silence. The rarefied atmosphere of silence. There's a insight blog by that very title, well worth a read. It's very powerful. Have a look on the website, the rarefied atmosphere of silence. And that rarefied atmosphere of silence is what's causing the dissolution of the identification, the attachment and belief. There's no effort from the personhood, the ego, to it. And it is this that's the surrender. Not that it's an effort, so to speak, it's more accurately the journey starts off as one of trust, a trusting in a higher truth, a higher awareness. And as we carry out a spiritual practice, at first that will seem like an effort, like the 3-month meditation program that many of you are part of. One is making a conscious effort, it appears, to commit to that program, to sit down for half an hour a day and use the infinite silence meditation in its various forms. What's actually happened, though, is that some call has been heard from within. The silence calling to itself as the silence, through the silence, back to the silence. It may appear to have been some conscious choice, but actually it's been a calling. And so this appears at first, meditation appears to be something that one is doing. Sit down, lie down, formally, half an hour a day. One approaches the meditation. But actually, as you carry on along the journey, and the whole thing with the infinite silence meditation is that it's guiding you to the space where that becomes effortless. It's like a bridge to the self, the silence. It's shifting the awareness. You'll notice how the meditation goes from here into the heart space, from the head space to the heart space. And the heart space here, not just the physical heart, but the heart of the truth, the silence, the universe. And in that process, so to speak, will appear as a process. One is, if you like, crossing this bridge, and then eventually the bridge itself dissolves and one becomes the meditation. Indeed, the living meditation, the living awareness. So the purpose, it turns out, of all spiritual practice, and you'll have heard me say this before, is that you don't have to. The purpose of all spiritual practice is so that you don't have to. Don't have to what? Practice at being who you really are. It becomes, shall we say, the practiceless practice. The realization flowers ultimately, naturally. I've heard it referred to as, sometimes we say, because they can almost appear by accident. But meditation approached in this space of awareness with trust makes you accident prone, i.e. in the sense of the happy accident of the realization. Some will say there is nothing you can do, and that is absolutely true, because it's not a doing. But approaching meditation in this instance, in this way, trusting, seeing it as the practice as a bridge, and then the bridge disappearing, and even the witness I talk about dissolving into the silence. It's then that the self is realized. And this is the effortless grace. And it turns out then that all of that, the whole of life, is effortless. And I mean that in the sense of not striving, not reaching, not wanting, not seeking, not looking, but actually realizing, finding, seeing that it's actually here now. I can see some questions coming up there, and I'm going to come to those in a moment. So it's this process of dissolution, of talking about like the ice cube. And this is where the trust is so important, because the highest form of trust, and you'll have heard me say this before, is not having to trust at all. It becomes the knowing. The knowing. So one embarks on, shall we say, the appearance of a journey, follows the calling of the heart, trusting in that calling, which is the highest thing that you can do, so to speak. And then that trust becomes the knowing, becomes the realization. I'm just going to pause because I noticed that Helen put a question there, and I just felt like a time to address it. I must still believe I have control of preventing things I think I can't handle, because thought seems to contain uncontrollable events. Yeah, so let's just look at that. The key thing in that sentence there, Helen, is belief. The fundamental block to self-realization. Listen carefully, folks. You've probably all heard me say this many times, but hear it again. The fundamental block to self-realization is the belief that you are not already this realized self. The belief that you are not already this realized self. That one belief, so to speak, is the culprit. All other beliefs connected with this are only subsets of that. They're just different aspects of the same flawed belief. And so the question mind then wants to know is, well, how do I drop or let go of this belief? And in truth, there is no dropping or letting go. It's simply the trust in the power of that higher awareness that dissolves, shall we say, like the ice cube in the water, the belief. And this is why trust is so important. I've just seen you ask the question I've just been responding to there, Helen. So it's via trusting, being open to a sincere openness to, and also coupled with that, a sense of realizing that you don't know anything. Listen to that carefully. That you don't know anything. All the things that you think that you know, you just simply think that you know. And I'm not talking about, you say factual things like 1 + 1 = 2 and you know that. Yeah, well, that's okay, but actually, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you don't realize or know the truth until you realize it, and then you realize you are it. And one can't articulate or express it, so you must simply trust. Most people get to a point in life where they've gone through life and the suffering has been going on in the background, or it can get to great heights, considerable emotional and physical distress, and then there's a breakdown, or a breakthrough would be more accurately. One simply lets go of the belief that's been going on in here. And the letting go isn't a physical thing. It's actually a trusting. It's a opening to this truth that actually you know nothing. And this knowing nothing has a number of facets to it. That you don't actually know from a mental perspective. But actually also, interestingly, it becomes the knowing of itself as itself. Good awareness there, Selin. So again, I know this to be true. Nothing is absolutely true. That's correct. The only, should we say, absolute essence or truth, if we can express it that way, is the silence itself. And you'll have heard me, some of you will have heard me say in the meditations, all I truly know is silence, and this I is the infinite I, and it's the self speaking to the self of itself as itself. So hopefully that's addressed your question. So trust is key, and then the trust becomes the knowing. I've just posted some of the comments here. I just want to just look at those. Yeah, and the other part that you asked about is about uncontrollable events and so forth. You see, what ego mind wants to do is to control. It wants to define its version of reality and remain in control. And its whole version of reality is based on a set of beliefs and a set of circumstances to keep it safe. But all of these things, the beliefs, the circumstances, are all impermanent. And so when these change, it is immediately challenged. And that challenge to its changing circumstances, its challenged beliefs, automatically brings up fear. And that fear arises because of the fundamental flawed belief that one is not the realized self. And that act of creating the illusion of separation brings about poles, love, fear. And so ego mind fears its dissolution. That's its greatest fear, is its dissolution, its dying off. But it doesn't die in the sense of the physical body dying. What it's doing is dissolving into itself as itself. So letting go of control, so to speak, and trusting in this higher essence is key. There were a few other things I noticed on the comments. I'm just going to scroll down, so just bear me a moment whilst I just find them, because I just want to make sure I pick them up. So yeah, there's a comment there from Ashleisha saying a lot is realized as an observer seeing the true self. That's not wholly correct. There's a good pointing in that. You remember there's a stream that's called the unseen seer. I forget which number that one is now. It's one of the more recent ones. It might be around 25-ish, something like that. I can't remember. The unseen seer. The unseen seer. So this is the seer, the recognition of itself as itself, but it is not seen from the physical domain. There's a recognition of itself as itself from that space of awareness. The last step, so to speak, is the dissolution of the witness. You'll have heard me say some in the meditations, and now let dissolve into the silence, and that's the dropping of even the witnessing. And it becomes the knowing. So I'm just scrolling down just to make sure I've not picked. There was a few other just little tidbits that I wanted to just make sure were picked up. Yeah, so the fear that you were talking about, Helen, the too much fear to see. That's a belief in itself. So if we kind of place trust in that fear, then that will amplify the effect in the physical body. So the trick is to feel the fear, but trust anyway. From the space of awareness, in the knowing of this higher truth. And that way the fear dissolves like the ice cube. Live stream 11, Helen. Have a look at live stream 11. Where are we going? So, yeah. Actually, no fear. Just let yourself. Do not think. Yeah. Don't trust anything that's coming from here in regards to this. It cannot be trusted. It cannot be trusted because it just simply does not know. It doesn't have the capacity to know. So not to be trusted. There's a short video called Trusting and Daring Not To I've referred to before. Yeah, that's correct, Lois. The witness dissolves into the silence. Exactly that. My heart calls for years. Yes. Good. I'm glad that it worked for you there then, Helen. So I think we've addressed most of the things. Something else here from Ashleisha. Your higher self is actually calling for it. Here I'm fading into nothingness. It's a peaceful feeling. One can even say astral travel when you become the observer. Okay, so there's a few things here that I need to sort of pick up on as well. Because people will say a lot in spiritual circles, this idea of higher self. And it's important to address this. Drop this as an idea. This idea of higher self in itself is a block to it. You are already this self. There is no higher and there is no lower. One simply is this. They're not separate. Boom. It's one. It's not separate. It's one. Drop the idea of higher self. There is no higher power than that which you already are. And I must say here, don't believe a word I say, because truth is an experience, not a belief. So the other part that I want to pick up on there, so this observer thing, this is useful to the point at which then the observer or the witness eventually, as we've already said, dissolves itself into the silence. It's like the last stand of ego. And then there's just the silence. Scrolling down further, I somehow feel this pushing and bringing great fear. Okay, Helen, this might sound strange, but actually that's good news. Because what that is showing, what's that saying to me is that there's a deep listening going on. And in that listening, the body will bring up, the emotional body will bring up all its fears around it. And the ultimate fear is the fear of death. So one, rather than seeing the fear as a challenge, which is where mind will want to come from on it, one simply acknowledges the presence of the feeling of the fear in the body, trusts this permanent space of the higher awareness of infinite silence. And in trusting that and only that, not any phenomena at all, then the fear will dissolve. Do listen to live stream 11, Helen. Yes, you're saying it's death. Exactly that. That is the fundamental fear that everybody has. And when that is passed through, stared at in the eye, so to speak, looked at in the face from the space of trusting in the silence, the essence, the source, whatever you want to call it, that fear will dissolve. Not because I say so, but because that is the nature of how it is. Oh, it sounds like you have seen stream 11. Even if you've seen it once or 5 times, it's worth doing again. Really, honestly, you will get more from it. So look at this fear, face this fear. We're going to go to the meditation in a short while, and you can look at it from that space in the meditation. For now, just simply accept that it is here and you are not it. Not the fear, that is. That you are the silence. Good. What's Inshira saying? Can you tell me please about how to become free from the fears in the world and the situation in Sri Lanka? So sad, what a world we live in. Thank you, Inshira from Moscow. Okay, so Inshira is actually from Sri Lanka and lives in Moscow. And we spoke about this a little earlier today, and I asked her if she would, if she wanted to raise it. So there's a few parts to Inshira's question there. How do we become free from the fears in the world? Now, everybody, it turns out, is looking for this, looking for peace, when actually they are the source of the peace. Peace is like the perfume of the self, of the silence. And we go looking for it outside when it's actually already here. And becoming free from the fears of the world will only arise in the realization of the self. So we take the journey within and we face the fears in the face, so to speak, but from the space of awareness. And as those fears are faced and passed through totally, utterly, completely, then the peace of the self is realized. This, so to speak, is the only route. There may appear to be many paths, but ultimately this gateway, passing through that, the dropping of that belief through the dissolution in the awareness, is what will dissolve those fears. And that's why live stream 11 is so important. It addresses that in great depth. The other thing about the fears in the world, everybody is fundamentally suffering from this same fear, this fear of death. And all of the horrors, like we have seen recently in Sri Lanka, which is one of so many examples over the history of the world, they all stem from this one place. This belief in separation. That belief in separation is the same belief as that you are not the realized self. And so we create otherness with that. And so we perceive he or she is this and is other than me, and I am better than them, and my belief is better than theirs. And that, taken to its absolute extreme, leads to the atrocities that we see, that we've experienced recently in Sri Lanka. But all of the atrocities in history come from that same source. If we truly seek peace in the world and truly choose peace in the world, then the only way, folks, is to realize it within yourself first. When inner peace is realized, outer peace becomes possible at last. Let me say that again. When inner peace is realized, outer peace becomes possible at last. So the answer to your question, in fact, in Shira, is you are the answer. You, as in the self that you already are, expressed in the form of Inshira, the answer is with you. And the greatest service one can do is to realize this self. If we truly choose peace in the world, choose peace here first. Because in choosing peace here, not only is it realized that you are the peace, the ripple effect spreads out across the universe. It is the ultimate service. It is, if you like, the reason why this guy that you call Philip sits here every couple of weeks on a Friday and every day is sharing something about this with the world. Arising from this source, the words that the silence gave me is this compelling compassion. Compelling compassion. From the self, to the self, for it sees the truth of whom we all are, but it also sees or recognizes that there's great suffering. So if we truly choose peace, choose it here. This is the highest service. This is what you're truly here for. Not just on this stream now, but in this life, in this form, in this body. Your own unique journey to that realization. How beautiful is that? The beauty that is you is truly beyond words, my friends. Truly beyond words. So yeah, I hope that hopefully addresses your question, Inshira. All of the things that are happening, all of these events, all come from this one source, made in many and infinite variety. So follow the inner calling, and then you will see. And then, yes, some of these things may still occur because there are many people in the world, but we will create not only a ripple effect, we will get to a point in consciousness where there's like a tipping point. You're familiar with that term, a tipping point. When the wave of consciousness becomes so powerful, it will create a tipping point. And actually, this is already beginning to happen. If you go back only 10 years, there wasn't so nearly so much awareness as I'm now seeing in the world. And more people are waking up to the fact that the truth is within them. So we're all part of this journey, and the invitation that you're feeling here tonight. Yes, okay, so Philip is creating this stream offering this, but actually it's coming from the self to the self as the self, and we're all that. This is the calling. This is the calling. This is why you're here. So hopefully I've picked up most of the rest of the things. Yeah, Heather made an interesting comment there about pretending, and ego is the great pretender. You remember that song by Queen? Yeah, that's what it is. Good. I'm glad that's why you brought it up, Ashleisha, as well. I picked up everything. Yeah, so I think that I've picked up the major questions there. So let's just recap. Effortless grace. Effortless because we are all, irrespective, we are all this. Some may be deeply asleep. Some may be more awake, and some may be realized. But the more that we take that higher choice, trust in that higher truth, the practice of meditation, the infinite silence meditation in this case, becomes practiceless, and you become the living meditation, the living silence, the living awareness. And you will see that it is effortless. No belief necessary. No belief necessary. Effortless grace. Effortless truth. Here you are. Good. Just one final thing before I close on that. On the whole thing with spiritual practice, I said I've commented on it already, but just to draw out another point. One of the things that's talked about is spiritual growth. And one insight I offered a while back was that spiritual growth is not possible. Self-realization is natural. Listen to that sentence again. Spiritual growth is not possible. Self-realization is natural. What I mean by that is that one is already the self. So it's not a growing towards that as a goal, it's a realization that one is already that. And that's why I'm saying it's not a growth, it's a realization. Self-realization is natural. One doesn't get there through book learning, one realizes one is already there. You'll see that on the other part of it that comes with spiritual practices, meditation being a key one, the fundamental one, I will go as far as saying, because one becomes the living meditation. There are many practices. If you're called from the heart to explore something, then go with that, but use discernment, because one of the traps, shall we say, on the way to the realization is what I call the chasing experiences. That is like this, I call it the spiritual sweetie shop. The experiences aren't it. The realization, which is experienceless, is it. Live stream 19, Beyond Phenomena, from Awakening Experiences to Absolute Self-Realization. This came up today. I think it was Sandy who raised this one with me, a realization that she'd had. It's not about phenomena, it's about the realization. And also recommending again that you look at live stream 18 in this light, which is the infinite silence meditation, explored and experienced. Because having shared what I've shared with you tonight, that one also will now hopefully mean, well, it will mean more to you. It will become clearer. So streams 19 and 18, key ones. Good. Well, we've been going along with that for longer than I anticipated. I thought I'd cover that fairly quickly, but there's been some good questions, so thank you for that. Effortless grace, my friends. You are this grace. You are this peace. No effort required. It's simply here, now. Good. Good. So simple. And therein lies its power. And that power is yours in the non-personal sense.